Hi, I'm your host Dan Woods, and I'm here with Gerry Organ, former CFL player, mentor, recruiter, and trainer for theCODE Ottawa. Gerry, nice to have you here.
Thank you, Dan. Great to be here, and looking forward to talking to you and to the viewers more about theCODE.
You've got a helpful analogy that'll give us some insight into theCODE. Tell us about that.
Well, I hope it's helpful, Dan. This is something from my past, of course. This is a Grey Cup football from 1981, and I actually kicked this in the game, and quarterbacks threw it, receivers caught it. It was very useful back then in its day, but it's still useful today, even though it's a little tattered, a little worn, a little scarred, a little beat up, but it still is able to go into a game today, whether it's you and I playing or the CFL, and it could still be useful, and it will accomplish the purpose for which it was designed. Now we have another football here, Dan, that doesn't look quite as pretty. You can see that. It's basically got no air in it. So basically this football, it's newer, it's prettier, it's got nice printing on it, but this football is incapable of fulfilling its purpose. And in many ways, this particular football is an example of many of our young people in some of our higher risk neighborhoods, and particularly those that are at risk because of other factors, particularly those young men from fatherless homes. The moms will tell us specifically that it's very hard for them to do it alone. So it's hard for them to accomplish their purpose in life, and that's why, Dan, theCODE has been raised up to attract mentors to pour into their life, to sustain a relationship, and to infuse them with the fresh air that they need to see the world differently, to recover some of the lost hope, and to pursue their goals. And we come alongside and enhance their journey because basically, yeah, life is not a game. It is a journey, and we want to help them to succeed along that pathway.
So Gerry, how did you come to realize the critical need for theCODE? What's the why behind it all?
Well, the why goes back a few years, Dan. Basically, it was the cry for help from several single moms in our city. And this would be perhaps the opinion of several single moms, many throughout our city, for sure. But they basically came to Pastor Joseph Curia and saying, Pastor, we need help raising our sons. We can do a lot for them. We can do a lot for our daughters. We're okay. We're okay ourselves. But we see that our sons are missing something. Pastor, what would you suggest we do, or what can be done to bring people alongside to help us raise our sons? That came to my attention. I was one of the first to respond. I got involved with a single mom here in the west end of our city. Began mentoring her son and have been involved with him now for 3 to 4 years. Intensive mentoring for a year or two, and then just basically as a friend. So that's how it started. It started by the significant heartfelt call of single moms. And we responded for the second reason, Dan. It's obvious that God in the scriptures tells us to take care of the oppressed and the fatherless and the orphan. And we really don't have a choice. If we know the Lord and we want to serve Him, our purpose is to infuse into the life of some of these young men that which is very hard for moms to give. So we give to complement what the moms are already doing, and that's how theCODE got started. The call of the single moms and the admonition of Scripture.
Okay, so you have a need and a way to make a positive impact in a young man's life. So what does that look like for somebody who's interested, who might be considering being a mentor?
Wow, that's a huge question, Dan, because we're still putting those pieces together. There are so many aspects to a young man's life that we need to address that you just can't jump into it and say, I'm in as a mentor. So we share from much of our own experiences. And my own experience was traumatic at first, getting involved as a mentor in a community within our city that was very challenged. And I was almost fearful because that's not my background. But I went into that community and I began to meet with a mentor. And this is the key element when you step in suddenly to a young man's life. There's some fear and trepidation. There might be some confidence and boldness as well, but it's a challenge. Mentoring is a challenge. It's not just a walk in the park. It's a real challenge. But we've begun the journey. We've established this pathway called theCODE. It's one pathway among others that young men can choose. We basically have to win the confidence of the single mom or the parent or guardian to make sure they're on board, they're part of this operation, part of this system. And so if a mentor or somebody interested in being a mentor comes alongside, then the first thing we do, we give them an application form, we vet them to make sure we're comfortable with who they are and why they're getting involved with us. And then there's a training program that lasts for a couple of weeks. And then we don't throw them in the deep end. We walk with our mentors. We have skilled people on our leadership team to walk with the mentors and to make sure that things are going well. And the real key is, as we've already stated in part, the real key is to sustain a relationship with that young man. They're used to being dropped, they're used to being ignored, they're used to being set aside, but our role is to sustain that relationship. No matter how bad it gets at times, we want to sustain the relationship because we know that the longer this relationship goes on, trust can be established and the mentee, the young man, can then begin to really grow and begin to accomplish his future goals.
You have a segment here coming up with one of your valued mentors, talking about some of the foundational principles of theCODE. Why don't you intro that for us?
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, as I mentioned, we have a great leadership team, and Chinedo Oraka is one of our mentors. He's a medical doctor, great young man, just had a new child to join his wife and he in their family. And Chinedo helped us by previously just outlining something we call the Grand Slam. And he'll explain what the slam is, and then I'll comment on it later on.
The key aspect of the code is the Grand Slam. Show up, listen, affirm, and model godly behavior. It's all about the sums.
Okay, so you've heard Chinedo talk about the Grand Slam. Now this is where it gets challenging for anyone that's entering into a mentoring relationship. This is where it gets tough. This is where the rubber meets the road. The SLAM is just an acronym for what Chinedo has already expressed. And the first part of it is showing up. Often the young men that we are engaging as mentees do not really trust a whole lot of adults. They don't necessarily trust their school or their teachers or other situations. Trust has not been a big part of their life because there's, again, that sort of missing factor that has enabled trust to build. So when we agree and set a mentor up with a mentee as a match, they then arrange their own schedule, when they're going to meet, where they're going to meet. And it's absolutely critical to our mentors that they show up. And I don't mean just show up casually at some point on some day. No, they have a schedule and they show up and they're on time. Because by showing up, you're expressing your commitment to the process and to the journey. By being punctual, you're sharing the element of punctuality, which a lot of young men of any sort often do not fully embrace. So the showing up is critical as a way of establishing you are serious about this relationship, you're not going away, you're not going anywhere, and you are committed to this friendship, if you like, but in a mentoring role. And so the showing up is critical, and there's just no way of getting around that. And then we come to the L of the SLAM. And this is an element that often men don't do terribly well. Listening. You've got to engage. Dan, I just want to talk to you a little bit about this. You've got to engage with the mentee in such a way that they know you are invested in who they are. The eye contact is important, the body language is important, the words you use are important, but the most important thing is how you listen to them. Do you actually hear what they're saying? Do you hear their words only, or do you hear their heart? Do you hear their passion? Do you hear their pain? So we've got the showing up, we've got the listening skills, and these are not easy to manage, but the next one is really critical as well. A stands for affirm. A lot of these young men have never been really affirmed. They've never been really congratulated. They've never been properly recognized for who they are, the value that they bring to the family, the skills perhaps that they possess or not. Their ability in school is not being recognized. Whatever it is, they have a strong desire. It's innate. It's not they just think about it. Innately, these young men want to be affirmed. They want to be recognized as a person of value. And so this is one of the greatest things we can provide these young men. Affirm them sincerely in who they are each time you meet, with each story they tell. It might be a tough story, but you just affirm them in getting through it. It may be a victory at school or in sports. You affirm them for who they are and what they accomplish. So affirmation is so important to the mentoring process. And in the biblical sense, affirming a young man is almost analogous to putting your hand on his shoulder and blessing him, because that's the impact that affirming a young man can have in this journey of mentoring.
Excellent. And that brings us to?
It brings us to the very last element of the SLAM, which is M. Dan, and you know what the M stands for, correct?
I hope so.
It stands for modeling. Now, modeling is also a challenge because we don't want to model something that we are not. We have to be sincere, legitimate, and appropriate in who we are. We can't pretend to be this giant of a man of faith if we're not. We want to bring ourselves legitimately into the relationship. And so the whole issue of modeling is be authentic, do your very best to model a Christ-like approach to life by the words you use, by the stories you tell, by the way you respond, by your promise to pray, even if this person does not share your faith at the moment or ever. That's not the point. The point is you have promised to pray for this young man. So modeling the attributes of a good man begin over time, not instantly, over time, to become actually attributes that they will choose for themselves. We're praying that they will choose those positive attributes because, again, getting back to the whole issue of purpose, the more they can grasp the attributes of a good man, the more they will be fulfilling the purpose for which God created them.
So, Gerry, the SLAM sounds so simple. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry, but life's not like that, is it?
No, it's, as I said, it's very challenging, but I've been blessed to have been mentoring a young man named Paul. And why did I get hooked up with Paul? Does God have anything to do with some of these divine appointments? I believe he does. And I struggled with Paul for about 6 months, just trying to get his attention. And he would show up, usually late, but I was faithful in showing up on time. And and listening to his heart. And let me tell you, the reason why we connected so well ultimately, after about 6 months when he trusted me, is one simple factor. His mother was blind. And one day, without even thinking too much about it, I told him that my mother always prayed that she would not go blind. But toward the end of her life, through macular degeneration, she actually went blind. And when I told Paul that, there was this instant connect, and he trusted me from then on, and the mentoring process worked. I didn't imagine that could be the impact. So when we're in the mentoring situation, all kinds of good things can happen, and some difficult things can happen as well. But how do you become a mentor? You'll see the process on our website, but basically we pray and we match a qualified mentor with a mentee and his family. The first introduction is for you as a mentor to meet the family. It could be a single mom, it could be a dad, it could be a family intact, but they just feel that their son would benefit from a mentoring situation. And so that's the first thing that happens. And if that goes well, and the training goes well, then the match is basically made, and you begin the journey. It's a great journey. It's a journey of life, really. It really is. And the journey includes sustaining that relationship for as long as you choose, or we prefer that it lasts at least 1 year as a mentor and a mentee. So these are some of the aspects that you'll be facing, and many other questions that you will have, I'm sure. And we've got a booklet called the Operations Manual for you to look at and study. And so we want you to be well equipped and to receive as much as you give into this relationship. You'll be blessed as much as the mentee is blessed. You need to know that we're totally committed to this as a God-ordained ministry. And we believe God is the architect of this ministry, and that no son shall be left behind. And I just feel that the heart of God is so committed that no person walk alone in this life. No person, whether it's a mom, a dad, a child, a teenager, a divorcee, a widow, we all need to be walking with somebody. And the code is committed to make sure that every young man, especially those at risk, will have somebody to walk with and to deliver to them the hope of a life of purpose.
Any closing remarks?
Yes, Dan, and thank you so much for this opportunity. The closing remarks that I want to share with you are, first of all, to express my gratitude to the leadership team of theCODE. They're great people. You'll see their photos on the website and another published material. They've been just terrific, and have continued to be part of that leadership team. It's just fantastic. As we close, I've indicated that there are some struggles and difficulties to overcome in your mentoring relationship, but that strengthens your resolve and your character, as well as it does provide positive input for the mentee. One of the stories that you may have heard of is called Pilgrims Progress. And it's about a pilgrim, a person on a journey. Life is a journey, we've talked about that. And but there are many obstacles to overcome, many battles that have to be won, many mountains that have to be climbed. But in the end, the pilgrim comes through successfully and accomplishes the purpose for the entire journey. And that's my prayer for you, that as you involve yourself perhaps in any engagement, but including the possibility of your working with us in theCODE, then we want to equip you, we want to partner with you, we want to support you so that your purpose in life will be achieved, in part because of your journey with theCODE. Life is a journey, and nobody needs to take that journey alone.
Gerry Organ, thank you very much. thecodeottawa.ca, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.